It's okay. It's okay. Stupid traffic. I know.
We started? Okay. Great. Welcome everyone to the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is August 6th, 2024, and we're meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. The first item is we are going to switch up item A and B tonight. So we're going to start with the update on the Beverly Taylor Sorensen Elementary Teachers and Arts Instructional.
It's the middle. And it's from list.
And Dr. Amber Roderick Landward, Director of ISD, will present along with Alice Meredith and Sally Sampson, Director of Elementary School. Directors of Elementary School.
Sorry. It is recorded.
Are we having technical problems?
We're good.
I think, was it working? Now
I'm
that we
supposed to repeat that. just to be-
repeat all that? Okay, great. Okay. Welcome everyone to the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is August 6th, 2024. And we're meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. And the first item on the agenda is item A, and we're actually going to start with item B. And that is, item B is an update on the Beverly Taylor Sorensen Elementary Teachers and Arts Instructional Technicians. And Dr. Amber Roderick Landward, Director of ISD, will present, as well as Alice Meredith and Sally Sampson, Directors of Elementary School.
This go.
Okay, and Mrs. Amanda Oakes is online, joining us on Zoom, and Mrs. Nybar will be joining us momentarily. And the other board members are in person.
Good evening, President Schill and board members. Thank you for the opportunity to give you updates on where we are with our elementary boosters and IT techs for this coming school year. We'll go ahead and get started. We thought we would start first of all with reminding everyone about the historical timeline of where we started in terms of planning for our elementary teachers in the past and where we were as of this last school year. So prior to 2013, each teacher had 100 minutes weekly of planning time, and this was protected planning time. They did have Friday early outs, but if you'll recall, there was no time built in during the school day for professional learning communities. And then we tried for 1 year in 2014 and 2015 to change that to provide more time for planning. And we were able to work up to 4 hours of planning time weekly for our teachers. But I think it's important for everyone to remember that this was unprotected planning time. We still had a monthly early out for professional development. And we also built in a requirement for PLCs to happen monthly. But again, that time had to occur, or those meetings had to occur after school. So you go from 2015 to the present, and by present, we mean the end of last school year. And at that time, we had worked up to 160 minutes weekly of protected planning time for our teachers. We went back to the Friday early out. We built in a brain booster model, and we also required that 60 minutes of PLC time. So let's talk a little bit about what's changed over the years, and just a reminder of our strategic plan. There are a lot of additional things that have come with the strategic plan in terms of things that we expect from our schools and our teachers. So we just wanted to kind of go through some of the things that, as a result of implementing that strategic plan, we put in place. So we now have our Portrait of a Canyon Scholar. We have talked about having personalized competency-based learning. We've increased our STEAM integration, our arts integration, and our physical movement. We also have increased the cross-curricular and hands-on learning, and we prioritize attention to our diverse learners. We've also committed to increased communication with our stakeholders and to improving our student-teacher relationships and building those connections. We also have prioritized the implementation of the MTSS framework for social, emotional, and well-being. So here's where the investment came in and what you approved of for this coming school year. We are now increasing planning time for our teachers to 120 minutes each week. That is now a total of 280 minutes weekly for planning time. We have 60 minutes of planning time built in every single day, Monday through Thursday. And we have increased the student school day by 10 minutes, Monday through Thursday, in order to allow for this planning time. And then we are starting what we like to call Brain Boosters 2.0. In the past, we had 30-minute classes for our Brain Boosters. And sometimes those Brain Boosters were back to back, and they might be on 2 days a week, might be 3 days a week. But what we have committed to now going forward is a total of 45 minutes for each of those Brain Booster classes. And every week our students will receive arts, STEM, playworks, and library. Whereas before, you might get a combination of the different ones. So our total cost increase is $1,249,254. So I am going to now let Sally join us and talk a little more in depth about what Brain Booster 2.0 is going to look like.
So after we had that great investment, our schools and teams got to work and organized so that we could be ready to push this out. And we are really excited because our schools are excited, our employees are excited, our teachers are excited, and most importantly, our students are excited because they are now going to have these Brain Booster 45-minute class periods every day. And we all know that's their favorite part of the day in elementary school, many of them. So as Alice mentioned, the Brain Booster instruction will go from 30 minutes to 45 minutes of instruction time. In our past Brain Booster model, planning time was all across the board. Some instructional technicians received adequate planning time, some did not receive any planning time. So we were able to standardize and increase that planning time of a minimum of 4 hours of planning time for each instructional technician that is built into the schedule every week for them. We were able to allocate funding appropriately to enrollment size. So the first Brain Booster model was a one-size-fits-all. So whether your school had 204 students or 700 students, everybody had the same allocation. That made it a little difficult when teachers, our Brain Booster teachers and technicians were trying to do the same model with the same hours, but not the same amount of students. So we were able to allocate funding according to school enrollment size, and we were able to work with our schools to make sure that they had enough hours in that enrollment or in that allotment to fit their master schedule that was designed by school. In the design of the master schedule, one of the non-negotiables was having that 10 minutes of transition time in between each booster. In years past, as Alice mentioned, backing up right next to each other, if you have a 30-minute booster and then you have the next class right there, there was no transition time built in, which made the booster maybe 20 minutes, and our instructional technicians and BTS teachers felt like that was really preventing them from implementing some of the things that they wanted in that time frame. So each of our master schedules has that 10 minutes in addition to the 45-minute block. So our instruction will be that 45 minutes. We were able to increase our instructional technician contracts to begin the same day as the BTS teachers and our classroom teachers. And that, we haven't experienced it yet, but we've heard feedback. And one of the biggest things is building that collaboration model, helping those teachers and our instructional technicians and our art teachers to be able to plan together, to get to know one another, to talk about PBIS as a school model to really build that community within the school. And our ISD department has, they actually have put together an amazing training opportunity for all of our BTS and instructional technicians that are specific by content. And many of the trainings that they will be having during that extended time is in PBIS, in content, are the U of U regional meeting. Well, there'll be a U of U regional meeting for our BTS teachers. So we really have strengthened the support prior to school starting with those with our BTS and our Brain Booster teachers. And then, and that's what I talked about. That last one was the content specific. So instead of saying, everyone come, we're going to, teach you these things, they are taught by our specialists specific to their content, specific to their role. During the summer, all of our schools completed their master schedules, and some are still a work in progress. They're tweaking it for details. But we audited those to make sure that all of the things that the board directed us to do were included in those master schedules. So we have confirmed that every Brain Booster has at least 4 hours of preparation time weekly. Now, in some of our larger schools where we have more students, those hours are a little more increased. They may be up to five hours of planning time each week for those boosters. So we wanted to make sure that we were cognizant again of the size and the need. There is 10 minutes of transition time between every booster. All of the classes are set for 45 minutes. And we also wanted to ensure that there was an hour of preparation time daily for our teachers. All of those master schedules we will work to have displayed on school websites so that if parents have questions, when is art, or when do you go to STEM, or or if you have questions about the planning time or any of those things that you might wonder about in your schools, those schedules will be available. So as a kind of a summary of our Brain Boosters, all of our schools will be hosting the following art. Now, when I say art, there could be a multiple different art forms, which I'll talk about in a minute, but art with BTS or a technician, library, playworks, and STEM will be happening every single week. 26 of our 29 elementary schools, including Jordan Valley, have certified BTS teachers. So we have 3 schools that have not adopted the BTS program, but they do have strong fine arts programs going in those schools. They just haven't adopted the BTS teacher model. 23 of our elementary schools, in addition to their BTS art teacher, also have an arts IT. So that means that in addition to those hours that we are given for the BTS teacher, they're prioritizing another art form, or it could be the same art with an IT to support that. And then our art forms, as I mentioned up on bullet 1 where it says art, those are determined with input from teachers and school community councils at the school level. So the schools can decide what art form is going to best fit their needs. And below is a summary of that. So you'll see in our visual arts category, we have 9 of our schools have a visual arts BTS teacher and 16 instructional technician teachers. 12 of our schools have a music BTS teacher and 3 additional IT teachers or IT technicians. 5 of our schools have a drama BTS teacher and 1 instructional technician. We did have a couple great dance programs last year, but they've changed to different art forms this year. So we don't have any dance going on this year. And as of when this was published, we had 3 open IT positions. I know our schools have been working really hard to fill our positions.
We're down to 2.
Oh, down to 2. Okay, so we're working hard on filling those positions. So this kind of gives you an idea of the additional arts electives that are going on in our schools and helping you to see that in addition to that BTS, we do have some other technicians that are supporting our Brain Booster. Retention was a big concern when we put this model forward, because as I mentioned, some schools were losing hours because they were maybe overstaffed when we looked at the allocations, and some schools we increased the hours. Our principals have been so supportive of working with the employees to help them find how this job can fit for them as well as the school. So when we look, I got this information from Human Resources. They had been keeping a chart, so I asked them to add the 23-24. We showed that there was 116 technicians. Out of those, we had 10 resignations. Now that number does not include maybe technicians that moved category. So maybe you were a library technician and now you're going to be an art technician, or you were a STEM technician and now you're going to be a library technician. So there was some movement in there. I predict that some of the increases were also, as I looked on the data that we collected directly from schools, we were able to increase the library hours for many of our schools. So that made it so that we had to hire another person to take on those additional hours, because we're held by those 28 hours that they can work. So we really feel like we've had a great return of our employees. They're excited to come back, and they were able to see how this was going to fit into the schedule that they had loved for so many years. BTS is not included on this. However, our BTS teachers, we actually have only had to hire 2 brand new BTS teachers. We had 3 resignations. One was a full-time teacher, and she retired. And the other was one of our full-time teachers, and he chose to pursue a different field. And then the third was a part-time teacher who our school changed art form. So they went from one art form to another art form. So that teacher did not have a position in that same school. We did have some of our art teachers, some of our BTS teachers who were part-time, and they decided I would like to work full-time. So they were actually able to now split in 2 schools. So we were able to not only retain them, but increase hours by offering them 2 schools. We also had some teachers who were full-time at 2 schools and wanted to just go down to part-time at 1 school. But I think with all of, 26 art programs and only having 2 brand new teachers, that really shows that they also are committed to, this program and working through what we are building here in Canyons with our Brain Booster 2.0. And so now I will turn it over to Amber, who's going to kind of take on what our future looks like.
Indeed. So one of the things that we really wanted to highlight, that in addition to the investment that you all have made as a board, our schools continue to make a significant investment with their school-based funds to be able to increase integration overall, particularly when it comes to arts. So what you see on this slide is a list of the number of things that our schools are doing, as well as some other department budgets and things that we've been funding to be able to support some of those priorities that we continue to address in the strategic plan. So we have a number of schools who for the coming year have increased the hours of their BTS teachers to support additional integration than what the schedule has even called for, because they really wanted to move forward and advance from where they are this year. We also have a number of schools who have increased the number of hours for their technicians to be able to allow for more time with transitions or for various needs depending on the school size and the school schedule. We also have a number of schools who have planned for the upcoming years some targeted professional learning related to integration in the areas that the Brain Boosters are also providing instruction. So that's either faculty-wide PD, working with individual grade level teams, or even some specific coaching that we're doing with individual teachers who have expressed interest in implementing more integration. Our schools continue to provide additional funds to support these programs by purchasing all the supplies and equipment that our teachers and Brain Boosters need to integrate, both also to make the quality of our Brain Boosters continue to increase. We also are continuing to fund and allocate time to be able to support the arts assemblies, and we have many of our schools taking advantage of those, both through POPs, Arts Inc. We've also partnered with Health Center Story Weavers to come in to our schools to be able to work with our students. And then we send every year our students up to the Utah Symphony, and we provide busing for that. And so the schools just allocate the time to prioritize that. We have a number of our schools who bring in substitutes on a regular basis for their building leadership team to have extended meetings so that they can really, as a leadership team, prioritize what instruction is going to look like and how they're going to continue to increase their innovative practices with things like integration. Many of our schools continue to add and support before and after school opportunities for orchestra, choir, theater, makerspace, and various coding clubs. So you'll see a lot of those things in their TSSP funds as well as priorities. And then many of our schools are continuing to support student competitions at the school level and at the district level, as well as offering a number of community events for their school community through STEM nights, school-specific art shows, and performances. Some of you, I think we shared this information. Nancy, you'll have to remind me. So one of the committees that meets regularly is the Arts Consortium over the course of the year. And one of the conversations that came up during one of our meetings was some of the feedback that came from the board and through teachers around the topic of our schedule changes and how we're going to make sure that the schools who are really exemplar in their integration implementation aren't going to be hindered with the new schedule. So we talked about that for a couple of meetings at the Arts Consortium. And at that meeting, having the powers that be with you all as board members, you agreed to bring that information to Leon, who has approved some additional funding for additional hours for some of those BTS programs. So what that's going to look like, both short-term and long-term, we had kind of a subgroup committee with some BTS teachers who are our real teacher leaders in the program. And we thought through that the complexity of adding these hours can't just be willy-nilly. We really want to make sure that we're increasing the quality while also meeting every BTS program where they are, wanting to make sure that we have all of the schools meeting a specific criteria before we award that funding. So in the short term, we, over the course of last year, our arts team spent time in every single BTS school to get a baseline and understand where all of our schools are with their implementation. BTS teachers also filled out a self-report of how they felt they were doing with arts integration, as did the principals. So taking that information, we were quickly able to identify roughly some of our exemplar BTS implementers, and some of those schools were the schools that have in fact wanted to increase the hours of their BTS teachers. So for the short term, we will work with those principals to fund those additional hours so that they can free up some of their school funds that they had originally allocated for BTS. For the long term, the goal is to increase the quality and consistency of that BTS implementation, specifically the integration piece. So we are working on organizing specific criteria of what that would look like and a process. The process we see coming through the administrators, because they really have to be the ones to lead that effort and support the teachers as well as all of the planning. We'll then work with them and evaluate their current integration implementation efforts, as well as the goals of where they want to be. And then we'll collaboratively develop that plan and then what it means for their needs in terms of if there's any increased hours. And then depending on the funding, we'll be able to award those hours accordingly. So that's the long-term plan there. As far as for the upcoming year and beyond, we really want to continue our efforts supporting our Brain Booster as well as that integration support at the schools. So we've identified some key areas that we wanted to just share with you that we look forward to moving forward with this year. In terms of professional learning, we've organized a series of role-specific professional learning. So we'll be offering professional learning to our administrators during their level meetings to really continue to develop their knowledge related to content integration, specifically with the arts, and get them access to opportunities at the University of Utah that have been offered in the past, specifically for administrators that some of our principals have found really, really valuable. We'll also continue to offer specific training for our classroom teachers, as well as our Brain Booster staff. Our Brain Booster staff, as well as our BTS teachers, have consistently come in every month for professional learning specific to their role. And this year, we're really excited to be able to organize some collaborative professional learning that will bring all of the Brain Booster ITs together so that we can look at an integration across the Brain Booster content and curriculum as well. We also then are continuing to work with our BTS teachers specifically. So there's a BTS teacher leader group that our arts team has been working with, and they've been really instrumental in being advocates both for the BTS program, but really helping connect us with what their needs are and being leaders and mentors for our BTS teachers who are trying to up the ante, so to speak, in terms of their integration and their programming overall. So we will continue to work with them and collaborate. They'll be the ones helping us kind of test drive a lot of the implementation tools, as well as the rubrics that we're developing for that integration and extra funding. We also have been working really closely with USBE this summer. After all the work that our Arts Consortium has done, the work that we did with a couple of our BTS leaders, and just the information that we've gathered over the course of this year, we really have pushed USBE. They've had a lot of turnover with their arts folks. And so they've been really open, and we've been collaborating on updating and increasing the implementation monitoring tools that we have to be able to really support that integration and what it might look like in terms of varying levels. And then finally, we also have been part of a group that's recently been developed by USBE to really look at an elementary integration framework in general. So that includes arts, but it's not just arts. And we're really excited about the work that's coming together across contents. And art has been a big part of that discussion, as has STEAM. And then finally, we continue to work on our intentional resource development for our teachers and brain booster staff. All of the curriculum has been revised for our brain boosters to account for the additional time, to account for the feedback that our brain booster staff, as well as our BTS teachers, gave to us from November through the end of the year about what they would need to make this 2.0 model successful. And so we've been working to make sure that those resources are in place for the start of the school year, and we kick that off with them next week.
Hey, Amber, one thing real quick. So I'm just, the BYU partnership would
Oh,
include.
I skimmed over that, didn't I? Sorry.
Not that, you know, it's all BYU, I get it. No judgment. But just want to mention the Arts Express conference. I know that's, we've tried to really support that with our teachers and BTS folks, so.
We are really fortunate with both the University of Utah and BYU, their strong commitment to partnering with local school districts to be able to provide ongoing professional learning and offer opportunities for us to attend from their experts. So it's been very reciprocal. They've offered events that we can attend, and then in several cases, we've had some of their folks come here and work with our teachers directly and our teams. And so that's been a really great partnership. And then of course, I should have mentioned USBE and BTS, both organizations, their specialists have been really great to support and collaborate with. They have the same goals that we do in terms of quality. And so it's just one big happy family.
Just really quick on that. So those conferences that are offered in the summer for teachers, I know years ago when I served on the SCC at a school, we had heard about it kind of through a roundabout way, and we thought it would sound like a great opportunity. And we ended up using some of our land trust funds to provide that opportunity.
Arts Express.
Yes, Arts Express. So what type of communication is happening at the school level so that school community councils understand and teachers understand that it is an opportunity? There might be resources made available.
Really, really fair question. So at the elementary level, all elementary teachers and administrators receive a weekly email of important information, updates to their world, as well as opportunities that they can access for professional learning in district and out of district. And so we advertise all of our professional learning in that Friday weekly email. And so we start typically with things like the summer events. We try to start advertising and letting them know of those things early, like in February. Then we give them a little breathing room, and then we let them know again in March, and then again in April. So we tend to notify them of summer opportunities kind of in a staggered approach.
Okay, no? Okay, Thank you so much. This was really helpful, and Mrs. Oaks texted me and she wants to ask some questions. But we need to be done by it's probably like 10 or 15 minutes, because we're supposed to start business meeting at 5:30. So just be aware of that. But okay, so Mrs. Oaks and then Mrs. Nybar.
Okay, thank you. Guys, can you hear me okay? Okay, great. You guys, thanks so much for your presentation. This is a cause and something that I care very deeply about because I feel like it makes such a significant positive difference in the classroom. And I know that with the changes coming, a lot of our BTS teachers and others were very concerned, and I appreciate you gathering all of this information. I know that, and you guys were great about responding to some questions that I sent you earlier today. I know when we're looking at retention numbers, you mentioned that it doesn't include BTS teachers. Can you help me better understand why we wouldn't have included that on that slide?
They're a different classification because they're certified teachers, and so we don't organize the data together because they're a different group. So we can certainly put together a similar table because the BTS teachers are licensed to be able to show you the trends over the last couple of years, if that would be helpful.
I do think it would be helpful because I feel like it creates a more complete picture of what we're looking at, especially when we're wanting to really make sure that this, in terms of arts integration, I think we need to have that clarity, and especially for anybody looking back on this and trying to compare apples to apples for future choices or decisions that we make, if that makes sense.
I think that that's a really good point. And that data, we have that data, it's accessible. And so we can certainly have that to keep in our back pocket for when we update again. I dare say, Steve and Sally, from all your time, same turnover with our BTS teachers the last handful of years as we have with our part-time classified employees. Is that fair? Is that accurate? And then, of course, with the change in schedule, we actually needed more BTS teachers this year, so that FTE increased.
Well, and I understand that there's also something to the fact that I've gotten feedback that some of the BTS teachers, because their hours would have been decreased from 20 to 16 hours, that they ended up having to move school communities in part to be able to make sure that they had enough hours. And I don't know how we can better reflect some of that information or data. I think it's also important when we're trying to evaluate the impact of this change in the elementary schedule. Another thing I am concerned about too is, so maybe you can clarify this for me. I'm still not clear on. So they have 45-minute blocks, the BTS and IT teachers do, and there's 10-minute transition time. Are those BTS and IT teachers or technicians, are they the ones who are expected to help with the transitions of the kids, like moving them from classroom to classroom?
Often, and it just depends on the schedule and or the school and how that's organized. So in some schools, the teachers both drop the kids off in their BTS class and pick them up. In some schools, the teacher drops them off and the brain booster teacher or technician takes them back. In some cases, it is the brain booster staff who do both. And so part of that is dependent upon all the other factors related to the schedule, where the recess is, what other grades are going out to recess, how close they are to lunch, and who's coming in next. So it's a lot of little factors and nuances that go into a school determining who's doing what in that regard. And that's why we were so adamant, because of the feedback from our brain booster staff, that class time does not include transition. It is what they need for instruction and supports that time that they feel is necessary to support the students' development in their content area, and that they have a full 10 minutes in between each grade level, because that was not always the case. And so they really felt rushed, and this will give them, I think, more of what they need to be able to be successful.
So the concern I've heard is that it won't, I mean, if they're the ones that are actually walking the kids back and forth or in charge of the transitions, it does not give them adequate time to be able to set up the classroom for the next group of kids effectively. I mean, and so you can imagine, like, whether it's you're a music teacher and you're setting up instruments, you're a visual arts teacher and you're setting up, you know, the various artistic medium you're going to be using with your kids, it's going to cut into that 45 minutes of instruction time if they do not have assistance, or that we have better problem solving on that. And some of them have said, you know, it was our understanding that we were going to have some assistance or aids with that. They're very concerned about how this is going to play out. And I'm wondering if we can figure out how to better meet those needs.
Yeah, I think that again, because those are such school level decisions, we'll continue to problem solve with the schools individually if that continues to be a concern. One of the things that I know will be addressed during the professional learning next week when they're talking about classroom routines, because we're moving to that 45-minute schedule, and for some of our schools that feels like a big increase in terms of time. Some of the routines that they'll be and procedures that they'll be talking through, similar to how in our middle schools, when we have a 50 or a 48-minute class period, part of your classroom routine and your management becomes how you are organizing the end of the day, how you're picking up your materials, because they've got instruments, they've got supplies, they've got devices, all of those things as well. And so we'll be helping them develop those routines so that that can become very efficient at the end of that 45-minute instructional block, so that whatever is required of both the teachers and the brain booster staff, they'll be able to get the kids to and from where they need to go quite quickly, so that, you know, there's still a break in between classes to, you know, like use the restroom and things like that, meet your adult needs so that they can do those things as well.
Okay, another question. I know we're running short on time, Amber. I'm trying to be sensitive to that. The rubric, I don't see much of a rubric attached to how some of these BTS teachers can qualify for more hours or more monies that way.
That's not been developed.
Okay, it hasn't been developed. That's helpful to know. I am thinking about some of the schools that might not have BTS teachers exactly, but who have excellent arts technicians, and I'm just wondering if it would be wise for us to expand the opportunity to qualify for those funds to any IT professional that shows a great quality and the same kind of excellence as what we're looking for with the BTS teachers.
I think it's definitely worth exploring. And what I would love to do is, when we have the criteria for the arts integration specifically and BTS, we can bring that back. And then when we have the work that we've been collaborating with USBE on related to the bigger picture of integration in elementary school, that we look at that framework as well and look at where those opportunities to do exactly what you're talking about, Amanda, where do we have schools that have barriers that funding could perhaps solve with the staffing that they have? And then I think it would be great to really look at how we can make those opportunities available, because I think you're right. I think we're going to continue to see innovation with this model, and I'm really excited to just see what our schools will come up with.
I appreciate you saying that. So I actually just would like to make a formal request that we revisit this in several months from now. I am with some specific, I would like to make sure that we do a survey of some type with our ITs and our BTS teachers to get feedback from them on how it's going and to better understand. I mean, when I look at the list of what we're doing as a district with the arts, I see so much growth that has happened in the 6 years since I've been on the board, and I'm thrilled with it. It makes me so happy. But yeah, I also recognize that there's a lot of room for growth. Some of the things that we have listed on here are definitely more enrichment opportunities. I mean, while we say we take students every year to the Utah Symphony, for instance, that's really only our 5th graders. And so there's a lot of room for growth, especially with integration. And it's clear that we're moving more in that direction, which I'm thrilled about. But I don't want to lose sight of these wonderful professionals we have in our building and that have great capacity to expand and grow. And I want to make sure that we check in with them several months from now to see how that's going and see where we need to improve.
I think that that's a fantastic idea. And again, I think we'll continue to have feedback and information from our leadership team of BTS teachers, who I think are instrumental in our success moving forward as well. So we've got lots of access points for feedback.
Okay, great, thank you. Mrs. Nyborg.
Thank you for this, and I really appreciate all the work and that you were meeting with the committee. And I do believe Mindy Vandergraff is one of the ones that you've been meeting with on the committee. Great. A lot of what you were saying, I've had a lot of communication with her and emails back and forth, and a lot of what you're saying sounds very familiar as some things that we discussed. So, and I think this addressed it fairly well. You know, the biggest problem is in some of our larger schools, the amount of work that these Beverly Taylor Sorensen teachers need to do outside of class time because they have extra rotations because of the extra kids. And so their hours working. So, you know, that's something that's been shared with me a few times. Like the cons are the larger schools where there's 4 or 5 classes per grade level. The teacher doesn't necessarily have time during the week for co-teaching or push-ins because the boosters is monopolizing most of the time that we're paying them to be there. So, and then Fridays with early out days as well as assemblies, it's limited, you know, when they're trying to get to helping with that, you know, because the whole purpose of this, right, their special training is that our integration with the main teacher. And so the more we can provide those collaborative experiences with the classroom, their main classroom teacher, the better. So then what's the timeline on this? You did say, you know, specifically, what's the timeline as far as getting the feedback and going through?
Really good question. So I would anticipate we will have a pretty good draft of our rubric in late fall in terms of getting those extra hours, because we want to be able to present that to the rest of the BTS staff in enough time so they can really be thinking about that for the future and whether or not they're in a position to consider it for part of the year or if they really need to look at it for the upcoming school year in 25-26. As far as the framework that we're working on with USBE for integration, because we're not solely in charge of that, I can't give you a definitive, but I'm going to be optimistic, and I would love to say that by January we'd have something from that work to be able to then look at how it might apply to the work that we're doing here in Canyons in our own strategic plan. In terms of general feedback from all of the Brain Booster staff about how things are going, I would recommend that we consider taking their feedback about midpoint in the year, like January-ish, so that we'd be ready to present to you in February, because that's again, before we start thinking, or right about the time we start thinking about FTE and budgets, and you can have that in your heads as well as we plan for the following school year. Does that sound like it would work?
Yeah.
We can certainly be.
And everyone on the committee, they feel good about that as well, right?
So we've got lots of different groups
Okay.
of feedback happening. We've got our arts consortium. We've been working with a leadership group of BTS teachers, and actually we have a leadership team of ITs as well, who have been just helping be kind of a sounding board and represent their larger group of peers when we're looking at decision making. We have not given them these timelines yet. We've been spending more time with the BTS leadership team. So I think they're anxious and ready to go as soon as we are as well.
Okay. But everyone will be, that communication will go out with the timelines.
Correct.
And the BTS, I'm just thinking about the BTS leadership team. Those are the teachers that I feel like I heard the most from with the changes. So are they all feeling comfortable with this timeline?
The ones that we've spent the most time with, yes. So
Okay,
there
great.
were a couple of BTS teacher leaders that have not joined us for every single meeting. I think Mindy has tried to connect and update them to make sure that they're staying in the loop and that their voices are represented. But we're really excited to be on a more regular meeting schedule as the school year starts.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other quick questions? Okay, thank you so much. That was really, really helpful. And I know the board was really interested in it, and we'll just look forward to you guys coming back with information in a few months or in January. We'll figure it out. Okay, the next item on the agenda is we're gonna go back to item A, and the board, we have this paper that we passed out to you, but this is just kind of so you know what is gonna happen. We're just gonna go over the procedures for the truth and taxation hearing. So just so you know, if that main room gets full, then there'll be overflow in the break room and then the superintendent's conference room. And both those rooms will have live feed, so they'll be able to see what's happening. Patrons will sign up just like they normally do in front. And we are gonna allow everyone to speak who wants to. So even though we're saying 15 minutes, we'll allow everyone to speak. We're gonna reserve 3 chairs in the front so that the patrons can be on deck. We're gonna have patrons can speak for 2 minutes, and those if you're an individual, if you're representing a group, it'll be 3 minutes. And then Sharice, our assistants, will escort, if someone who wants to speak is in overflow, they will bring them in when it's their turn. We already covered that. We will not stick to the 45 minutes. We'll just let them talk as long as they want, however many people. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Then after the last person is, who signed up to speak has finished, I will ask the audience if there's anyone else. Then after the final speaker, I will ask Mr. Wilcox to come up, and he's gonna be taking notes and will answer any questions if there's some questions from patrons that he feels need to be clarified. And then after Mr. Wilcox concludes, we will just have board discussion, and then there'll be a possible motion. Okay, and then we need to complete study session by 5:45. Business session, sorry, and study session right now, well, 5 minutes ago. So, so we need to get in there to start at 5:30, and then let's just try to go straight in there. We'll go straight in there, and then we'll take a 15-minute break. 5:45 to 6.
Yep.
Okay, even I will go straight in there. I'll go straight in there. No talking.
We're watching.
No talking.
We're watching you go straight.
I will now close this meeting.
Go to my car.
Where'd it go? Welcome, everyone, to the business meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is August 6, 2024, and we're meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. We have Mrs. Oakes, who is not in person, but she is joining us virtually tonight. And the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda for tonight. Do I have a motion for that?
I will make that motion. I move that we approve tonight's agenda for the meeting of the Board of Education.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and I will ask for a motion and please read every item.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda, approval of minutes from July 9th, 2024, approval of hire and termination reports, approval of student overnight travel, approval of purchasing bids, approval of 2024-25 early learning plan, approval of policy 500-02 student conduct and disciplinary process, approval of policy 400-02 non-discrimination, 500-01 non-discrimination and review appeal panel language to be added to all applicable policies, and lastly, approval of administrative appointments.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion to that motion?
I'd like to say something if I could.
Yes, Mrs. Oakes?
Yeah, so I wasn't able to be present at the last meeting, but I wanted to thank those who worked on the student conduct and disciplinary process policy. And I appreciate the addendum that was made that's being proposed here for the additional language to be added. I just want to say, in addition to this, I want to reiterate the importance that while we are making sure that we're compliant with the recent legislative changes and are reflecting that in this policy, I really want to make sure that we keep going further as a district and ensuring that we're becoming more thorough in this area of policies in our district, and especially with regard to investigations and documenting various things kind of aligned with much of what members of district staff recently learned from Davis School District at a conference that they held last in the month of June. That was excellent on that subject. So again, thank you to the policy committee and just an encouragement for us to keep going.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Oakes. Are there any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. So that is all our business for our business meeting today. And so we'll now adjourn, and then at 6 o'clock, we will come back for the truth in taxation hearing. Thank you, board.
Like 25 minutes. Can I run to my son?
Wow, you scored that one fast.
Anyway, so the answer is yes.
Okay, so why have you been so busy?
My daughter, who lives in Harriman, is in the process of closing on her house. She's selling it because
Welcome everyone to the Truth in Taxation meeting of the Canyons School District. We are meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. And I want to let you know that Mrs. Oakes is joining us virtually. So she'll be able to hear us and speak. The first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda for today, August 6th. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda for the Truth and Taxation hearing of the Canyons Board of Education for today, August 6th, 2024.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mrs. Oakes, are you there?
Yes, I said I. Could you hear me?
Okay, we just couldn't hear you. I just want to make sure you were there. So
Yes,
thank you.
you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is to have the Pledge of Allegiance, and that will be given by Dr. McKay Robinson, Assistant Superintendent.
Will the audience please arise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. The next item on the agenda is item 2, and it is the staff presentation on the proposed tax increase. And Mr. Leon Wilcox, Business Administrator, will be presenting that to us.
Thank you, President Schill, members of the board. Also want to thank all our patrons who came out to our hearing tonight. I know it's summer, a beautiful night, lots going on in everyone's lives. The Olympics are full bore, but appreciate all those who took the time out of a busy schedule to join us here tonight. We'll listen, anxious to hear their comments. We want to go through a short presentation. It is found on board docs, and you can follow along there. Also, it should be said, I'm not sure we're using them, but we have 2 overflow rooms. So this message, video, and audio is being heard in those rooms. It should be said they're on about a 30-second delay. So just so everyone is aware of that, okay? Want to just go over the process on how we got to this point here. So back in March and really last fall of 23, we talked about doing updated projects at some of our schools, mainly East Jordan, Corner Canyon, and Hillcrest High Schools, and Eastmont Middle School. So we elected to issue some bonds to get going on these projects starting this summer. We're underway on some of those, and then have to increase taxes to pay this bond payment back on for these capital expenses. So that's part of it here. We've also talked about recouping inflation. We'll talk about that through the certified rate here in a couple of slides. At our budget meetings on May 21st and June 4th, we had our budget hearing on June 18th, where we tentatively set our budget, and then at the same time went above what we call the certified rate by $9 million, subject to a truth and taxation, which is here tonight. We then put a story out on our website on June 19th. It's still there if you would like to look it up. It's on our front page, and there's a link there. We have to comply with several advertisements from Salt Lake County and ourselves. So we put notices in the paper. We've also had some things on social media. KSL did a big story on all entities raising taxes on July 19th. And then again, other social media post and our parent square to all our parents. And then here's where we are tonight, August 6th, with our hearing. I just want to take a moment and define what I will refer quite a bit tonight to the certified tax rate. I want to just take a moment to define what that is under state law and what's understood by that. Under Utah law, they have a certified tax rate system. And that means that entities, and that would be school districts, counties, cities, can bring in the same amount of property tax revenue 1 year to the next, okay? With the allowance for new growth. So if a new home or business comes in, they can collect the property tax on that. Otherwise, they have to live within that fixed income, if you will, of revenue from 1 year to the next. So anytime you go above the certified rate, it requires what we're having here tonight, a truth and taxation hearing. There is no inflation built into the certified rate. So that is why entities like us, school districts or cities, have to go through a truth and taxation and increase the certified rate every few years to capture that inflation. Also, the certified rate, I should mention this right up front, it can be pretty complicated because as a district, we can collect the same amount of money every year from 1 year to the next. I'll just throw out $1 million. We can collect $1 million 1 year. We collect that 1 year. That's how much money we can collect the next. However, who pays that can vary from year to year, and especially between residential homeowners and commercial homeowners. The last few years, all of us know residential homes have gone up quite rapidly, some 50, 60, 70%. Whereas, so they're going to pay in more to that certified rate, whereas businesses have been relatively flat the last several years on assessed valuation. So that impacts taxes as well. So again, every few years, entities have to go through the process of capturing inflation. Last time we did this was 5 years ago. In 2019, we held a hearing here. That was to increase teacher salaries. We got teacher salaries, starting salary up to $50,000. The previous time before that was in 2009, when we separated from the Jordan School District. So in the 15 years that we've been a district, this is the third time that we've had a tax hearing and exceeded the certified rate. What I want to go over now is a tax statement. And I know these could be a little difficult and hard to understand. And, I think they are required to put so much out there that it can be confusing to understand how a tax statement looks. This is a sample tax statement for the average homeowner. So last year in 2023, the average home in Canyon School District was $653,000. This year it rose to $703,000. That's about a 7.7% increase, or $50,000. But I want to go over these lines here. I'll use my pointer here and pointing back there on a couple of these lines here. First of all, when I talk about the certified rate, I'm talking about the top line here. That is the Canyon School District line. That is the amount that we are increasing right there, is through that amount right there, that top line. Excuse me. The debt service is to pay bonds. So Canyons has gone out and had 2 bond elections, one in 2017, one in 2010. And this is the bond payments for those projects that we agreed to do on those bonds. In the past, these 2 lines have been combined into one. This year, this legislation was passed that they needed to be separate. So that adds to part of the confusion right there. So this again would be the proposed amount of tax on a $703,000 home. That equates, if we did not have a tax increase, it would be about $1,064, or about $94. I'm going to round tonight, $94 difference. So it's about $8 a month more, or a 9% increase on the average home. Now, also want to note that these 2 lines do relate to schools, but they are set by the state under formulas. We as a district don't control those. So I want to make that clear. They're set by the state. So it's really only this line right here. This top line is the one that we, Canyon School District, controls. So again, I want to say that's average. Now, we always say average is average, right? Half is above, half is below, right? And so that's always how this impacts an individual home is going to vary greatly from home to home. I've talked with a few homeowners during the last couple months whose home really didn't increase much. They only increased 1 or 2, 3%. So their taxes from year to year stayed relatively flat, not a big increase. I've talked with others who've had a 20+% increase in their home value, and their taxes increased quite a bit. So again, it's all in how the county assessor assesses your property and the change in the certified tax rate. I know that they're hard to understand, and I know they can be complicated. I'm happy to talk with anybody who has a question on their tax statement after the meeting and try to go over it with them. So if you want to see me after the meeting, please feel free. Again, to just capture inflation, 5 years ago when last time we did a tax increase, I used $100, what we could buy with $100. And over the last 5 years, we all know we've all been hit by inflation. We know that. Food, fuel, salaries, everything like that. So what $100 bought 5 years ago, last year, or right now, it buys about $20 less or $80 worth of stuff. And so that's, that's basically 20%. And we see that through the CPI being reported out there. And so everybody, we understand every business, every homeowner being impacted by inflation, as is Canyon School District. Now, you talk about what would these funds be used for? We're using the tax increase in 2 areas. One is our capital, one is our operational, which we'll get to here. 5 million of it will go towards operations. So 5 years ago, when we got our teacher salary, starting salary to $50,000, we are now this upcoming year, we're going to be at 61,610. So we've increased starting teacher salary by 23%. So that's great to help us recruit and retain teachers. We've also had to hire more teachers because of to help reduce mainly our elementary class size. So some of the money will go towards that. One of the things is to just try to, like lots of businesses, we're struggling in some areas recruiting and retaining employees. We're doing pretty good in most areas, such as bus drivers, cafeteria workers. The one area we do struggle with is our paraeducators. These are individuals who work with our special education students. We're looking to increase their starting wage because we're still down about a dozen of these employees. So we're looking to increase their starting wage. You can see the amounts there, almost $2 an hour. Also, we're being, supplies, utilities, curriculum going up. Our share of school resource officers, again, we have to put a school resource officer in each one of our high schools. And then most of our middle schools, the city pays for half, but we also have to pay for half of that officer. So, police salaries have also gone up quite a bit. So we have to, that's almost a $500,000 charge to us starting next year. And then our insurance, just to insure our buildings, is about $400,000. These are ongoing costs that we have every year. Then hitting our capital side, again, this will be $4 million of the $9 million increase. Should be noting, years ago, when we started to rebuild Hillcrest and Brighton, you can see those pictures of those there. The cost to build those per square foot was about $280 a square foot. Now it costs to build a new school or to just do an update or renovation is about $450 to $500 per square foot, depending on what you do. So we've been hit hard on just construction costs. And as I mentioned earlier, we issued some bonds to do improvements at 3 high schools and Eastmont Middle School. And so these bonds, the bond payment we have to make each year has to come out of our capital bucket, if you will, our capital fund, to do that. And so we do intend to make ongoing improvements over the next couple of years at Jordan High, Corner, Canyon High, Hillcrest High, and Eastmont Middle School. We'll also use some of our ongoing capital funds in that capital bucket to complete those projects. So that's how the money the $9 million will be used, that we're requesting. Then going back, looking back, pre-COVID in 2019, last time we raised taxes 5 years ago, the average home was $421,000 in the district. You can see it now, over 700,000. A 67% increase in home values. That's quite, that's big. We all know that. If you didn't know, under state law, your property is 45% of your property is exempted from taxes. Okay, so you pay property tax on 55% of your value. So that's the amount calculated there. Back then in 2019, our certified rate was higher because values were lower. So if the values go up, our rate goes down, and conversely. Now in 2024, value's gone up, our rate has gone down. On that certified tax rate line, 5 years ago, it was $971 for the average home. This year, it's about $1,158, about $187 difference, or 19%. Again, when you compare that to the 67% that homes have increased, okay? Just want to do some comparison to how Canyons is to some of our neighboring northern Utah school districts. Again, the certified rate is complicated, lots go into it. Commercial property, how much a district bonds or is in debt, things of that nature all impact the tax rate. But if you were to have a $703,000 home in Jordan District in South Jordan area, or in Nebo District, that's the southern part of Utah County, Santa Quin, Payson, Springville area, or in Alpine, or in Granite, or Tooele, you could see how much you would pay on that $703,000 home. Davis is a little bit lower than us, others are quite a bit higher. But we also compared to what we start our teachers out at, again, 61,610, compared to what they are. We feel like we're trying to do the best with the dollars that we have. It should be noted that Alpine, Granite, and Tooele, those bottom three, are also looking at raising taxes. Granite's having their tax hearing tonight as well. Next couple slides, I just want to show, try to give just a simple snapshot on what we feel like is our return on investment here in Canyon School District, and what we try to do to how the best education we can supply to our students. Here is what we call our scale score of RISE test. That's a state standard assessment test. Again, all grades take it. We just took a snapshot of a few grades here and what they got. So you can see just the top line, English, language arts, in grade 3. You can see our scale score was 331. The state average is 322. And I won't go down the others, but you can see them there. The state's total, the state will release percentages, and they're embargoed right now. But when they do release those, we expect to be 6, 8, 10% above the statewide average. That's what we've been the last several years on our RISE score. So we do feel like we're above this. We know we're above the state average on that. Also, when you look at each of our 11th graders takes the ACT for college readiness. You can see our scores are about 1.3% higher than the state average. That's around 5 to 6% right there. So we do feel like we're doing our best to get our kids ready for college and career once they leave our system. Are we perfect in this? No, we know we're not. We know we have room to improve, but we do feel like we've made good strides in our return on investment here. Also, every business organization, the employee feedback, the morale of your employees is so key to having success, and no matter what you do. So we send out annually a survey in April to all our employees, and we ask them, there's about 15 questions on it, but we just want to summarize it here. 73% of our teachers, that also include our counselors, our psychologists, they responded that they strongly agree or agree to being satisfied with their position in Canyon School District. And 84% of our education support professionals, that's our non-teachers or our bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria workers, administrative assistants, they responded being, with 84% being satisfied with their position. We're like any other organization out there. We know we're not going to make everybody happy or pleased, but we feel pretty satisfied with those numbers there. They've actually come up quite a bit over the last few years, especially the teachers. They were in the 60s just not too long ago. Also, it should be said that we do survey all our graduating seniors. Again, it's optional if they want to respond, but those who did for this last graduating class in May said that I am satisfied. I received education. I'm satisfied with the education I received in Canyon School District. 85% said that. So we, again, not going to get everyone, but we feel very good with that. Out of the nearly 2,500 students that graduated from our system this last May. A couple things just to wind up the slide. As I mentioned earlier, the key is the value of your home is really the driver and how much property tax you will pay. If you feel like your property value is reported higher on your tax statement, I would encourage you to make appeal to the Salt Lake County Auditor's Office. Their information is there's the website there. You can find that online. Again, Salt Lake County, the Auditor's Office to do that. The deadline is September 16th, so make sure you do it by then. There are statutory relief payments for property tax owners. There are 6 of those. So this is through the Salt Lake County Treasurer, not the auditor, but the treasurer. And you can see those there. I won't go through them all. The two ones are to me, the two big ones are the top and bottom one. It's homeowners over 65. There's what they call a circuit breaker. So if you meet a certain qualifications, your tax bill can be reduced. There's also a new one. The bottom one there is for a deferral program for those 75 years old or older. It's similar to a reverse mortgage type system. So that just started. I think this is its 2nd year. Here it's getting some popularity, and it could be beneficial to some of our patrons who could be interested. Again, the deadline for this is a little bit earlier. It's September 3rd. So make sure you pay attention to those dates. Again, I think we passed out a paper with information how to get to these relief programs. So with that, President Schill, I'll wind up. We'll now take public comment and then have board discussion and a possible motion afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilcox. So we have now come to the public comment portion of our meeting, and the board often designates time in meetings to listen to the patrons of the district. Patron time is limited to residents and taxpayers of Canyons districts, students and parents of student and current employees of the district. Patrons may provide board members with written documents, and these documents must be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting or emailed to the Office of Public Communications by noon the day following the board meeting. Tonight, individuals will be given 2 minutes, and those representing groups will be given 3 minutes. Comments made during patron comment time are part of the public record. The board's practice is to listen and take notes during patron comments, and the Board of Education does not discuss matters that are not on the meeting's agenda, nor engage in public comment on individual students to protect their privacy or employee issues. The Board of Education values input on all sides of issues, and to maintain decorum and respect, we ask that those in attendance refrain from applause or other types of demonstrations during the patron comment time, as well as throughout the rest of the meeting. So I am going to read 3 names at a time, and I ask that you come up here on the front row, and we have some seats reserved so that you can be on deck, just so we can move efficiently through this. And when I read, the first time I read your name, if you'll please come up. And then also, if I say your name wrong, please correct that when you come up. Okay, we'll first have Betty Shaw, then Krista Pippin, and then Steve Van Maren. So you three, can you come up to the front?
Want me to wait or start?
That's good.
Hi, my name's Betty Shaw. I am a patron of this district. I've been involved with the district leadership and other parts of the district since its formation, since the beginning of the whole thing. I've been very impressed with how the district has run this entire time. You have been very judicious and very careful in your finances. Congratulations, Leon. You are a numbers geek, and I didn't fall asleep during your presentation. I was watching the news the other night when I had first heard about the date of this hearing and heard that Alpine was having their 6th increase in 10 years, tax increase. And I said, I'm so grateful for the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience that this board and everyone who served on this board in the last 16 years has taken to ensure that taxes don't go up just every single year. I'm now on a fixed income. My husband's retired. And so it's like, oh, I'm one of those people. And so I am aware of this. The tax increase that is being proposed is not as large as it could be. And I'm grateful for that. I appreciate the care that you all take in trying to minimize the impact that it has on fixed incomes, because I know you're aware of it. I've talked with most of you about those kind of things. I appreciate that. I'm going to get emotional, the care that you take for our children. They're our future. They are going to be the school board members and the ditch diggers and the construction workers and the policemen and the firemen and the nurses and the daycare people. We have to educate them. We have to do the best job we can. It costs money. It costs a lot of money. I am completely in favor of this. I trust your experience that you will do the best job you can. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And just as you notice, there's just a little beep that will come from over there. So if you hear it and you're still speaking, just kind of wrap up your comments. That would be great. Thank you. Okay, so Krista Pippin is next, then Steve Van Maren, and then Bruce Eschler.
Good evening, President Schill and our school board members, Dr. Robbins and Mr. Wilcox. I appreciate this time to be able to address you. I'm Krista Pippin. I am the Canyons Education Association president and representing the licensed educators in our district. And we wanted to make sure that we thank you for being willing to have this truth and taxation meeting and asking our Canyon School District community to capture the 2024 assessed value and the inflation that we have not had the opportunity over the last 5 years to have access to, that we so desperately need to invest in our students and to truly support all of them with the amazing facilities and the educational opportunities that they are accustomed to in Canyon School District. Of course, we wish that the Utah legislature would release all of the public education funding that they collect every year through our income tax. So our district did not have to ask the community to help invest in our future. We would highly encourage an annual truth and taxation meeting so that we continue to capture that investment. And also for our Canyons community, it wouldn't be such a huge increase all at once. It would be that slow, gradual increase. Last thing we would like to do is to thank our Canyons community again for investing in our amazing students and our future.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Steve Van Maren, Bruce Eschler, and then Rachel de Azevedo. I probably said that
Madam
wrong.
Chair, thank you. Board members. I'm a little contrarian, I guess, based on the previous two speakers. I'm disappointed. You have got the community support for bonds, but this big increase, the 4 million of it, is because you did some upgrades without asking the public for their consent. These projects that you're doing and you issued bonds to do they seem like a little bit extra. If you'd really asked the community, I think you would have got support. So I'm against that. Obviously, you do need to capture inflation periodically. I hope you are retaining teachers well with the higher salaries. The 50,000 was a milestone for me when I recognized that in 2019. But I am not in favor of issuing internal bonds without the support of the public. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. So we have Bruce Eschler, Rachel De Azevedo, and then Elizabeth Like.
Good evening, Canyons District Board. I guess got to lean in a little bit too tall, sorry. District leadership, you know me, I'm Dr. Eschler. I'm the principal at Jordan High School. I'm here to say thank you. I've been in the district for 10 years. I've seen the district continually prioritize investing in our students by providing them with the best facilities so our students can learn, recreate, and participate in the high school experience. The beauty of a high school is it's a living organism. Students will have some of their most amazing experiences on the field, in the classroom, and on the stages of our buildings. And I am grateful as a principal of Jordan High that you are considering prioritizing the needs of our beat diggers as you prioritize the needs of all of our Canyon School District. We are better together. We are greater together. The reason I can say go beat diggers is because we are Canyons, and I appreciate your consideration for investing in the Canyon School District children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we have Rachel, Elizabeth, and then Stacy Kirchhoff.
I just wanted to stop by and say thank you as well. I've been following you guys' decision process through this for probably a year, as long as you've been doing it. And I've really appreciated the thought that you guys as board members have put into making this decision and asking hard questions, some that made me upset and I didn't agree with, but I appreciated them being asked nevertheless. I am involved in PTA, I'm involved in SEC, I'm involved in flashcards, I'm involved in reading to kindergartners, all of it. Public education is the best thing that we could possibly give our kids. I fully support what you guys are doing, and I'm grateful that you're doing it. And I'll support when you raise it again, because it is very, very important that we do this for our kids and for our teachers and for our admin and for our community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth, and then Stacy, and then Wendy Buchanan.
Thank you. Okay. My name is Elizabeth Like, and I'm here to thank the board for the generous donations to Eastmont Middle School and Jordan High School. I'm a part of Eastmont Middle School debate team, and I notice, as long as my team, that when Eastmont attends different schools for our debate tournaments, we can always notice that these other schools are very nicely renovated and they're kept up well. And I believe that it is time for Eastmont to get a nice renovation and some more money, because every year we have something happening like floods or issues with sewage, and it's just distracting to our learning. And I believe that everyone should have a fair education that isn't distracting. Once again, on behalf of Eastmont and Jordan, it's appreciated that the board is putting in time to renovate Eastmont and Jordan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll have Stacy, Wendy Buchanan, and then Janine Cardenas.
Good evening. I'm Stacy Kurtzels. I'm the principal at Eastmont Middle School, and I also just came here to say thank you. There's a buzz about our school right now with our students that are coming in to register and our teachers, even though they're not supposed to be back, who are all there anyway. But the excitement of just small things that are being repaired in our school is bringing a new life. A roof. You would never think a roof is so exciting, but a roof that's going to prevent us from having to interrupt learning is a huge deal. So I just wanted to come in and say thank you on behalf of our students and staff, and we really appreciate the things that are coming. We know they won't be upgrades that are seen by the public, but they are definitely upgrades that are needed to keep us functioning as a school. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wendy, Janine, and then Doug Oviatt.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Buchanan. I have kids at Jordan, Eastmont, Glacier Hills, and a preschooler. So I am in here for the long haul. And I'm here to thank you tonight for the necessary changes that you are making to our school. My family has been excited, like Mrs. Kurtzall said, about the new roof, driving by the school and seeing that happening. Now, Eastmont is known to students outside of the school in the district as the school that floods. So we're anxious to put a new label on our school. We're excited to be known as an AVID school and a STEM school. That's the recognition and the title that our school and our students deserve. It'll also be relief to not worry about getting those emergency messages from our principal about another problem at the school and the need to pivot to online learning without warning or preparation. So thank you for making these things possible, because Patriot pride, it's inside. So thank you for putting that pride literally back inside our building. And at Jordan, a new field house and a black box theater are a welcome addition. They'll be a great asset and will encourage even more participation and support of our athletics and arts programs. It'll make our school feel as if we are on a more even playing field. And while students are happy about these things, if you ask what they are most looking forward to, bathrooms. That's what they want. It's been a big talk among my daughter and her friends. They just want working bathrooms. So thank you for getting these plumbing issues fixed so students don't have to go to the seminary building to use the restroom. Jordan has a long, wonderful legacy in our community, and the school and our students deserve this. Thank you for finding ways to make these upgrades that are necessary without having to rebuild the entire school. Thank you for that. And I know that investing in our students, I know investing in education not only affects the students, but all of us, because they are our future. So investing in them now will pay dividends to everyone in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Janine, and then Doug, and then Brent Nielsen.
Hey, hello, my name is Janine Cardenas. I have two boys in Canyons District. They both went to Eastmont and Jordan. I just had one graduate, so he'll be off to Utah State. We're huge fans of Canyons District. I will be PTA president at Jordan this year, so I'm excited about that. We appreciate you for the significant upgrades being made at Jordan and Eastmont. We appreciate the safety measures being implemented at Jordan to keep our students safe by having a front of the school vestibule. The plumbing issues at Jordan have been no secret. The students will appreciate having a running bathroom with no flooding and toilets that flush right. The upgrades that are so desperately needed in the sports department are so important to keep our school on even playing field with the other schools in the district. We all know the issues with Eastmont in the past. Providing a new roof will help with the future leaks and repairs. Fixing the bottom level floors will help everyone. We know that Eastmont is used by other people besides just the school for different sports in the gym as well as the auditorium, so floors are imperative. I will gladly pay $8 a month for our local schools to be safe for our students. We thank you, Canyons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we have Doug, Brent Nielsen, and then Dina Kohler.
Thank you, members of the board and Superintendent Robbins. I certainly don't envy the difficult decisions you face, both in general and particularly on the subject up for discussion tonight. The prospect of increasing the tax burden on the citizens of a district, city, county, state, or country shouldn't be taken lightly. Ironically, a main reason for the proposed increase tonight is to cover inflationary rises in expenses, something those being asked to pay more in taxes have felt and continue to feel in their own budgets. I know you all recognize the gravity of the request being made. What I hope we, the public, will also recognize is the importance Canyon School District plays in our lives in helping to ensure that our children, grandchildren, neighbors, and future community leaders and taxpayers are properly educated to move us all forward. The reality is that it takes resources, and resources cost money. If we wish to continue seeing quality educational results as we've seen that we presented tonight, coming from our schools, we need to be willing to cover the costs necessary in that endeavor. I've seen both sides of this coin. I'm a Sandy resident and father of 4 children, 2 Canyons graduates and 2 still making their way through. I'm also the husband and father of 2 awesome, I'm biased, Canyons educators. Son has been working in the schools and is a new kindergarten teacher this year, and my wife's the new assistant principal. I've seen the results of dedicated teachers and school employees, and I want to have them I want them to have what they need to succeed for all of our children. I've also heard of the gaps that need to be fulfilled or filled to ensure that success. For these reasons, I want to express my support for the tax increase and encourage its approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Brent Nielsen, Dina Kohler, then David Guston.
My name is Brent Nielsen and appreciate standing before the board. I'm a resident of Sandy about 24 years now. I'm on a fixed income, retired. When I came here, I was concerned about the tax increase. I think Mr. Wilcox has really set my mind at ease. I didn't realize this 5-year process, however. I think he's done an excellent job going over that. I am a little concerned when we say 23% increase over the past 5 years for the teachers. I think that's a little high in my mind, but I understand where you're coming from. One thing I am concerned is that when the funding comes down from the state or the taxpayers, that money comes down from the top to the teacher level. And the teachers are so well deserved and deserving of that money that they rightfully should be receiving. But I appreciate what you're doing. You've opened my eyes as far as this certified tax rate, how that's prepared. And thanks for all you're doing. I'm one of the earliest graduates of Hillcrest High. As I go by the new school, it's just unbelievable. It looks to me like a junior college. You've done well. And thanks for all your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dina Kohler, David Guston, and then Camille Guston.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to be with you. Hello, everyone out here. It's my honor to be in front of you again today. Thank you, board. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox and Dr. Robbins. Nice to see you. I am Dina Kohler. I'm the principal. I'm lucky enough to be the principal of Corner Canyon High School. Now, Corner Canyon High School sometimes gets a certain rap. When I wear a Corner Canyon shirt in the Valley, sometimes I get, hey, and sometimes I get, ooh. But I love being a community member in Draper, and I love being the principal. First of all, I'm a mom. I have 4 children, and they all are proud graduates of Canyon School District. And I appreciate that all of you have spent time focusing on the needs of our young people in our community. The wage increase, extra funding to better the schools that kids are going to, and adding for an enriched experience for our kids. We're competing against a lot of schools in this valley right now. And I still feel like Canyons is the place to be. I know it is. And because of what you've given specifically to my counterparts, Jordan and Eastmont, and helped Hillcrest with the track, I love all these schools. I've had the opportunity to be in them. And now I love Corner Canyon, and I'm grateful for what you're doing for our kiddos. Their experience will be enriched. They'll have the opportunity to work on skills that they'll be able to use the rest of their life because of what you've offered us. I've also appreciated those of you that have come to the school to see what our challenges were. You ran on the soccer field, you walked around, you walked in the building to see what was needed. And I really appreciate how hands-on you are. And I've taken that leadership and used it at my school. And I appreciate your example in that. I also want to thank you for putting safety first, adding a vestibule. I've practiced that word for several hours. My Latin tongue doesn't want to say that. But I'm grateful that you put safety first, and thanks for prioritizing that at Corner Canyon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have David Guston, Camille Guston, and then Kevin Larson.
Yeah, so I wanted to come by today, and I'm not under any delusions. I'm certain that a majority of you have already decided to vote in favor of this tax increase, and that this public hearing is merely a box that needs to be checked as required by the law. But I believe it's my civic duty to make my opportunity to make my voice heard in opposition to tax increases. We've heard plenty from those with their hands out, hoping that you'll continue to take more money from citizens to give to them. But as a citizen, I'm here to oppose the tax increase. Some of the thoughts that I wanted to share from the presentation is I look at the new buildings that are being built and the remodels and look at the increase in construction costs. And I think to myself, man, these buildings are absolutely incredible. I never went to a single school this nice in all the years, and I still got a great education. And so instead of building and spending so much per square foot, I think we can still get a good education and spend a lot less money on buildings. Also, there was so much focus on the increased value of our homes. Just because my home may increase in value doesn't necessarily mean that I have more money that I want to give to the government for taxes. And so to me, the fact that home values increase to me means nothing. Again, as a taxpayer, I'm still living in the exact same home. I'm just being asked for more money in taxes. And so again, I just don't know why we focus on some of that stuff like we do. The other thing is, and I know that this isn't just limited to you guys, but I get my tax statement every year and I look at this list and it just keeps getting longer and longer of all the people who want their pound of flesh from the taxpayers. Where does it end? Does the government ever have enough money? Or do the taxes ever go down? Is it ever going to be enough? Right? And is there going to be enough people with their hands in my pocket wanting more? Right? The list almost doesn't even fit on a single page anymore. And so it just feels disheartening that again, property taxes are now to the point where it feels like I'm merely renting my home and land from the government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Camille Guston, Kevin Larson.
My comments are similar to the previous commenter. I am new to the district, a new resident of the Canyon School District. And I also feel like the taxes just keep going up and up and up. And one of the numbers I would have liked to have seen for that spreadsheet or the presentation would be a per child cost. What are we spending every year per child? That was the number that I would like to see. And so maybe at the next meeting, next tax increase, we could see something like that. And I would like to compare it to other districts or other school sources out there. But yes, I feel like the taxes just keep going up. And if I don't voice my opinion against it, that they will continue to go up. I think teachers should be paid for what they do. I recognize the impact that they have on children. And I think children should have the opportunity to have a great education, but at what cost? And at how many times are they going to keep asking for money? It seems like every time our taxes go up, we say it's for the children. And I want our children to do well and succeed, but that can't be the reason every single time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kevin Larson.
So I went to school across the street. I did go to Jordan High School. And so I feel this, but I also agree with the previous two comments. I love this district. I love the schools here. And I loved my time. I went to the old Jordan High School that was 100 years old, and the new one. I went during that transition period. My grades were about the same at both schools. So I appreciate that we do need facilities that work, but I don't think we need the top of the line of everything at the expense of our own pocketbooks, because sometimes the burden is just too high. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that is the end of the list for people who have signed up. But I'm just wondering, I will allow anyone else who wants to speak to come up. So just maybe come up and just form a line right up here where people are sitting. And if you will just come and also state your name so we can get that for the record. Yeah, so just go ahead.
Hello, my name is Evelyn Short, and I currently go to Jordan High School, and I was previously a student at Eastmont, and it was one of the best experiences of my life, and I loved the quality of the teachers, and I just wanted to say thank you for all the people who are here and investing in me and my future and my friends' future and everyone who is trying to grow in this next generation and succeed in the future. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of the improvements and considering the kids in our district, and it is really such quality, and we love the choices that you're making, and I just wanted to express that as a student. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just go ahead and come up next and
My name's, excuse me, my name's Andrew Morgan. I live in resident of Draper. We would be sending our children to Corner Canyon as well as, I forget the middle school in Draper. But we send them to Eastmont Middle School, and we'll have students in Jordan as well. The schools and facilities are fantastic. I do want to make note that while I do agree with some of the previous speakers of how extravagant some of the buildings are, as a parent of both Jordan and a parent of Eastmont, let me just speak. I mean, I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, that there's real need there to, to fix those buildings. And I'm supportive of the tax increases from that, from that perspective. The school board has done a great job at building beautiful buildings and things like that. There are buildings that, don't have probably the capability of looking that good in a remodel. And as someone else said, that's okay. The quality of the teaching and administration in both Eastmont and at Jordan are phenomenal. And they're to the point, again, as all of you know, that facilities are restricting, especially Eastmont. I think as we've talked about, I've seen you guys a few times the last couple of years with everything that happened at Eastmont. And it's in desperate need to support the facilities of the great staff and the great administration there as well. So while I do share the concerns of, long-term expenses, I'm in complete support of those for now, and just hope you make the decision to keep supporting those. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
My name's Dan Brady. I live in the Brighton school boundaries, high school boundaries. Now, first of all, I'd like to just note that my father was a educator in the Granite School District for 40 years, so I have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for school teachers. However, when I received my property tax notice this year, I noticed that the taxes were scheduled to go up about 17% among the three line items for school. And even before the one-time inflationary jump for Jordan School District, it was scheduled to go up about 10%. I know that there's depending on how quickly your home is inflating, there can be a discrepancy from home to home. But I went to the Canyons school district budget book for 2024, and near the end, it has a section on property taxes and the effect on property taxes in the district. And I noticed that beginning in the 2021 school year, and then moving into 21-22, the assessment had actually increased by about 5.4% a year. So that in the 2021 school year, the average home in the district was assessed about $1,778. This year, it's proposed to be $2,195. So there is some kind of an inflationary rate built into there somehow on the average homeowner. I would also say that it's easy to note that you're asking for about a $8 a month increase, but at some point these increases become death by 1,000 cuts. If at some point we don't watch every one of these increases, we lose track. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does the next person come on up?
My name is Diane Bjornson, and I live by Hillcrest High School, and I've lived there for 40 years. In that time, my house has more than doubled in value, and as a result, taxes have gone up quite a bit. Just in thinking about taxes, I went back to see how much they were going to go up this year. And my taxes are going up $1,000 in 1 year. Now, a lot of that is for Canyon School District. I had 6 children and I loved the schools. And I have to tell you that I've been amazed at the schools that have been rebuilt in my area. Hillcrest, Union, Mid Valley. These are all schools that my children went to. And I think that you're doing a great job. But when I see on your list of proposed things that are going to be done, Hillcrest was just built again. And yet there's another $5 million on there for Hillcrest. And I'm thinking, why another $5 million when they just spent millions of dollars in building this school? That to me is a red flag. What is happening to this money? And I know a lot of people have mentioned about Eastmont that it needs improvements. Aren't these things that are done through bonding, not through that increase that is proposed? I see the debt one on my list also, debt service, and you said that was for the bonds that we've got, and yet my taxes are going up a lot more than that, and so that's what I'm concerned about. Yes, I am a senior, and yes, I suppose I could try to get some of these circuit breaker things, but I just worry about other people in my area too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next person is up.
My name is Jessica Davies, and I'm a Sandy resident and proud product of Canyon School District. I just wanted to take a moment to give my support for the tax increase and thank you for making the hard choices and putting our children first. I try to stay informed and I watch most of the school board meetings. I'm always so impressed with how aware you are of tight family budgets and how fiscally responsible you are with money in our district. I sat through the discussion of this possible increase, and I know how difficult it was for you guys to come to this decision. It's very apparent that some of our schools are in need of repairs and updates for safety and practicality purposes. I know that this is a difficult decision for you, and I commend you for making these hard but correct choices. For those who are frustrated about the tax increase, I'm frustrated too. I'm frustrated with the state legislature that continuously passes educational laws with little or no fiscal note attached. A legislature that has avoided meeting the needs of education in our state when funds are available and has not provided educational funding that keeps up with inflation. So if you are frustrated with this increase, the blame lies with the state legislature. In ending my comments, I want to share my favorite quote. This is by Lillian Katz. Each of us must come to care about everyone else's children. We must come to recognize that the welfare of our children and grandchildren is intimately linked to the welfare of all other people's children. After all, when one of our children needs life-saving surgery, someone else's child will perform it. If one of our children is threatened or harmed by violence, someone else's child will be responsible for the violent act. The good life for our own children can only be secured if a good life is secured for all other people's children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next person.
Hi, my name is Mike Carey. I'm a resident of Cottonwood Heights. Let's see, my wife loves being a sub for the gym class at Jordan High School and Brighton High School. It's made her feel young again. Oh, great, it's recorded. No, we've had 3 kids go through the system since we moved here 13 years ago. 2 graduated Brighton. My youngest is about to start. My background is in construction and development, and I want to touch on 2 points. One, I agree with the earlier comments about, are we building schools or are we building jewel boxes? I actually work with your architects that have designed some of these facilities, and I know that you can do better, okay? We do not need 2-story atriums in every school. We do not need full curtain walls at the front of every school. These are features that are typically reserved for higher education facilities with endowments in the order of like $300 to $400 million endowments. All right, so we really need to be taking a lean approach to any new ground up construction. Why? Well, like Mr. Wilcox's presentation showed, we've gone from $280 a square foot 5 years ago to $400 or $500 a square years ago, 5 years to $400 or $500 a square foot now. I used to be able to build hospitals for that 5 years ago. Okay, so the orders of magnitude are only going to get worse. The prices are not going to go down because of inflation, because of wage hikes. We've seen many trades
increase their wages upwards of 50%, 60%. That's just on the labor. Okay, that's about 60% of your construction costs right there. And it's not going to improve anytime soon. So we can't control inflation. I understand that. Okay. And I understand that we need to keep these buildings in operating order. All right. But one of my major concerns, and this is for every taxpayer in the room and yourselves, is we need to start lobbying the legislature to allow us to collect impact fees for schools on new development. This is criminal. This is theft from everybody in this room who has a tax bill. Right now, the legislature allows water systems and rights, roads, wastewater, stormwater, parks, municipal power facilities, and public safety. The one thing missing from there is schools. So as we push for another 1,000 units in Midvale and another 1,800 units in Cottonwood Heights and about 15,000 other units just in the next 2 to 3 years, in some cases subsidized by new legislation at the state level, we need to be working with other school districts around the state and lobby the legislature for a 1 to 1.5% impact fee for each school district.
Okay, thank you. I think that as long as there's no one else who wants to address us, I think that will close our public comment. And I just want to thank each one of you for being willing to be here and being willing to speak to us. It's really important that we hear from our public. So at this time, I'm going to turn time over back to Mr. Wilcox, and he is going to try to answer maybe some questions that some of you brought up.
Yes, thank you, President Shell. And again, I also appreciate everyone who's taken the time to come and address the board tonight. I wrote down a few questions that were posed. Some were more statements, so won't respond to those. But a couple of them that I wrote down, and please forgive me if I misstate your name. Steve and Marin, on our teacher retention, we retain about 12 to 15, we lose about 12 to 15% of our teachers every year. We're glad that we do not lose them mainly for salary or benefits. It's for more family purposes, a spouse leaving or moving or something like that. But it's really not for salary or benefits. But we do lose some, as do all districts. Ours, we do have a better retention than most districts, so we're proud of that. Dina Gustin, again, I apologize if I said your name wrong. This year, we're budgeting to spend about $12,000 per student. That's a little bit above the state average. I'll be honest, I do not know what the state average is for this upcoming year. This past year that just ended, it was about 10,800. So inflation has driven that up per student. Diane Bergson, again, I apologize. On the Hillcrest, again, appreciate you bringing that up. When we did Hillcrest, we confined the construction to just the building, the parking lot, and some play fields on the west side. We did not look at the stadium. Hillcrest High is the only high school in Salt Lake County out of about 20 that does not have that only has a six lane track. All the others have a regulation 8-lane track. So we're looking at expanding that. The problem we have at Hillcrest is the bleachers is to expand out. We have to do some serious work on the bleachers because they're all original from 1960 when the school was built. So that's a lot of demolition work on the bleachers. So that's the cost there. We also need to replace the turf at that field. The turf fields last about 12 years. That's about how old this field is. So we are looking to replace that. So we do appreciate you bringing that up. I wanted to make note of that, the improvements at Hillcrest. The last one I have is Mike carrying. Yeah, I couldn't agree more on impact fees. School districts were allowed to charge impact fees up till about 1996, I want to say. The legislature took that away. Many of them are developers, and we'll just leave it at that. And that's what happened there. They do need to be put back in. It has been a priority of school districts for probably 5-6 years to get those put back in. Again, they have been resistant to do so. It is unfortunate that cities, counties, as you mentioned, sewer districts can charge for impact fees. We cannot, and that is because we do have an impact when homes and subdivisions do get built. There is a big impact. So yes, appreciate you bringing that up. That, President Shield, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Now it is time for the board to discuss this tax increase, and I will just open it up to whoever would like to speak first about it. Anyone? Okay, Mrs. Nybar.
I'll go first. Thank you so much, everyone, for your comments. I wanted to address, I know there was some dialogue. First of all, thank you so much for the patrons that have been following the discussions the last year and for your thank yous. We really appreciate that. As a board member, I take it very seriously when we're looking at tax increases. I've been serving on the board now 4 years, and this is the first time we've actually proposed a tax increase. In fact, it's the first time since 2019. So it's important to note that our school district actually hasn't done this for 5 years. And meantime, we have had inflationary costs quite high. And there's other school districts that actually do this truth in taxation every year and do little increases. And we haven't done any for 5 years. Some of the comments about the buildings, I think it's important to note that on your tax statement that Canyon's school district debt service, that is all the general obligation bond that was passed by your vote. So the buildings that have already been remodeled and you're driving around saying those are really nice, that was put out to the public. And I think that, and I wasn't at the board on the Board of Education at that time, but I think that's very relevant because those projects, they are beautiful. It's a wonderful place for these kids to be educated, but that was put to the general public at a vote. That wasn't done through what we're doing now. When you look at what we're doing now and you look at the things that we are doing, we have inflationary costs, we have teacher salaries, we have our rising cost of utilities. It's interesting just in the last year and a half to see what's happened even just to our bus fuel costs. We look at our school resource officer salaries. I really appreciated the comment about legislators. It's really important that everyone here knows that legislators, every year there are laws that are passed that give us further obligation of new programs that we must put into practice without funding. So there was a big law passed this last year with school safety, with bulletproof glass and these SRO officers in response and like someone always there at the school guardians. Anyways, there's all of these things that we must implement, but we weren't given necessarily funds for that. There's certain grants we can apply for, but it doesn't cover it. So every year, and it is really important, whoever said lobby the legislators, I totally agree with impact fees. The other thing that would be really important is I think it would be great if every active citizen would write their legislators and say, really think about all those laws you're passing on public ed. Because if you are passing a law and you're not allocating any funds for that, we feel that deeply. The capital improvements that we are doing with this tax increase is really important to note. Jordan High School is a centennial school. It's been open for 100 years. They are the school that has been waiting to get improvements. There's a reason why their principal was here tonight. They are dealing with flooding in locker rooms, and these are that amount going towards Jordan High are things that I don't know anyone here would say are, subjective or just extras. It's hey, the audio system doesn't work. There's flooding. Corner Canyon, we've got water issues in the fields. We actually have teams that won't actually play on our fields, so we have to find a different location. A safety vestibule for Corner Canyon because we don't have that high school, and that's actually legislative. We're supposed to have safety vestibules. You go down the list, Eastmont Middle is very similar. So I wanted to comment that I whenever we're looking at doing a tax increase as a board member, I do feel very accountable to my constituents and want to make sure that it would be something very necessary. If we were doing
a more aesthetic approach or things like that, I think that would be more best suited in a general obligation bond where the public votes on that. So, and then that certified tax rate is a difficult thing, right? It's very difficult. And with all the new construction that's going on, that's more students also for us to educate. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you to Leon for his great preparation and detail for all of this for us.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to go next? Okay, Mr. Edel.
So I wanted to point out some of the inflationary issues that we've had over the last few years. So I pulled up on Wolfram Alpha inflation since 2019. And since 2019, which was the last Truth and Taxation hearing, inflation has gone up 24.82%. And I say that because I understand inflation impacts us. I'm a resident and a taxpayer in Sandy as well. I live here in West Sandy, specifically this particular area. I'm not a huge income earner. So I feel the inflation, but I want to point out too that the district also has to account for inflationary costs. One of the things on here was energy costs, which it showed at 42.94% inflationary increase. We have a lot of energy costs with just not only our buildings, but our buses. So when we look at a 9% increase, I get it, it hurts. I have to pay that too. But at the same time, I like to think, wow, we've gone up nearly 25% inflation. And we have some of the smartest individuals in this district to help keep that cost down. To not be on par with inflation, I think, is a testament to our business administrator, but also to the entire district staff that we're able to help keep those costs below inflation. I do appreciate every single person who spoke here tonight. I appreciate the time that you've taken to come out here and talk to us. At the last Truth and Taxation meeting, I was right there with you, taking my night to come talk to the board. I appreciate the time not only that you take now, but those who come out other times, the time that you invest to help communicate with us, the time that you take to send us emails, to give us phone calls, to stop me while I'm out. I just want to say how much I appreciate and value your input. And I want you to know, we hear you, we listen to you. And I know that not everyone's going to be happy at the end of any hearing like this, but I do want you to know that we do hear you and we do value your input. And so thank you so much for taking your time to come out here tonight. I really appreciate you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, Mrs. Pedersen.
I too am thrilled to see all of you that have come out, and for those that are listening and are engaged and involved. That is so important because we can't represent you without you telling us what you'd like, how you feel, how things are going. And we do take a lot of time to try and get to know what you need, what your needs are and what your concerns are. So thank you. Our system, I think, is healthy and it's working well. I really liked Jessica's suggestion that we take it to the legislature, because if the legislature ran as efficiently as we try to run, you wouldn't have any tax increases from them either. They just aren't held accountable. We have this meeting because we're accountable. We want to be as efficient as we can be. I mean, an example, easy one is that $8,000 that they'll give with no strings attached to private educators, private homes, $8,000 per student. Yet they only give our kids 4,500. Not even half. But it's okay just to pull that out of the regular ed and just, hand that over. We're concerned that they're not really thinking it through. I'm not saying that they don't need education and support as well. But can we do this so that the people that are responsible are accountable? So here we are doing our part to be responsible and accountable. And thank you. You are as well. You are doing your part as citizens. But as we come upon this year, it's going to be an interesting fall. There are some things that we need to really be looking at and thinking about when we cast our votes. We don't have a lot of input. We have some, but not a lot of input on national politics. We have tons of influence on state politics. So if we can really, I'm trying not to do a commercial here, but I really think that part of the problem isn't us. Part of the problem is that tax money you've already paid that you feel like should be coming to the kids isn't always coming. It's going to other prep projects and other favorite initiatives that they come up with. They have good hearts. They mean well. They want to keep us safe. But to be honest, Canyons has put a lot of effort into keeping our students safe. And every time they add another layer to it, to be honest, that's a burden. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like our students are really actually quite safe. We can always improve. Everything we do, we can always improve. But I feel good about the efforts that we're making. So if you're concerned and if you are frustrated, thank you for sharing that with us, because we want to know that concern so we can do what we can about it. But don't leave it there. Share it further. Get back to your legislators, because they think we're just complaining because it's going to benefit us, not realizing that it's actually for our kids. If you call them, they have to listen. You're their constituent. You know what I mean? You don't have anything to gain technically except their attention. So thank you, Jessica, for pointing that out. I really appreciate it. I really am thrilled that we have done so well in such a little amount of time and not have to raise taxes. Not really, just this little tiny bit. So thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're saying. And I'm sorry about the little soapbox there, but I think this is an important process and I appreciate your being part of it.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Oakes would like to speak.
Hi, thank you so much. I want to reiterate that I've been so grateful for everyone coming out. It's part of a healthy democracy and so important that you're here. I've never wanted to raise taxes. It's painful for me in part because of the reasons that were raised tonight by our residents. Organizations that actually weigh in on tax policy often say that passing taxes onto property owners is one of the least healthy ways of doing this. With that said, I feel like we've had very little choice in part because last year we had to dip into our reserves to keep up with the inflationary costs. And that was the first time we've ever done that as a district. And I knew from that point we would have to look seriously at raising our taxes. Though we have absolutely tried to communicate with our legislators about our double-digit inflationary costs, about the unfunded mandates, and also about impact fees and many other issues, they instead cut income taxes again this year. And in the last 3 years, that's $714 million total. What that means to us as a community is really important to understand, because the income taxes are earmarked specifically for the education fund. So when they cut income taxes, they're going after education, and it means less money for public education. With that said, they also continue to fund a voucher bill. Some of you may have heard, it's called the Utah Fits All Scholarship. And though that has not even started yet, it will this fall, they increased the voucher bill funding from $43 million to $83 million. That bill literally gives $8,000 to a single student to use for private or homeschooling, whereas they only give $4,500 for each public school student. If they had given that money to public education, we would not have to be raising taxes tonight. And I think it's important for the public to be aware of that. They passed it not this past session, but the one before, very quickly under the noses of the public without public awareness. And I think it's very important for the people to understand that and to communicate with their legislators their concerns about it. We also have had greater restrictions put on us in terms of what kind of fees that we can charge, which I think in many ways makes sense. I think that's wise. But in doing so, they have not awarded us any more funds to be able to make up the difference. Those fees over time, from 1996 onward, they really started to creep in as they weren't keeping up with funding needs for public schools. And now that we are not allowed to charge those anymore, we're left holding the bag on millions of dollars that we don't know how to close that gap unless we increase taxes, quite frankly. We are currently also looking at a couple bills that came through in the very last part of the legislative session, where developments for low-income housing, while that is so important, what they did was essentially say that if you were part of one of those developments and only a small percentage of those developments actually have to qualify as low-income housing, we are no longer able to charge taxes for that as public schools. So not only are we not receiving regular impact fees from typical developments, but they've gone even above and beyond further and taken additional monies away from public schools. We are currently 51st in the nation. If you include the District of Columbia, we are number 51. We are last in the nation for per pupil spending. And we're just right below Mississippi as of a census that was done this past April. I don't know about you, but it makes me very uncomfortable that we're last in the nation. Now, with that said, I think that we do a phenomenal job with what we're given. I've often said, and this is coming from the perspective of somebody who is actually very fiscally conservative. Over time, I have been amazed to see how Canyon School District and other school districts in this state work year after year after year to try and spin straw into gold. And in many ways, we do a bang up job of it. But when you have less and less straw to work with, it becomes more and more difficult to make those ends meet. And I feel like that's what we have been facing. And so with that in mind, I am supportive of this tax increase. It's not what I would prefer. I feel like there is a lot of work that needs to be done with the legislature. We are trying, we are absolutely trying, but I will say, as the school board member who interacts a lot with our legislators and spends time up on the Hill, they do not care about what we have to say nearly as much as they care about what you have to say. So please dig in, be willing to write an email, be willing to send a text, be willing to make a phone call or show up to a public meeting where they're there. They need to hear from you. And we really appreciate you coming and making your voice heard.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Oaks. Mrs. Tingy?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out and your thoughtful comments. I just appreciate every one of them. And I feel like you all have done a really good job of summarizing and expressing what it is we're here about tonight. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's an important part of the public process. And many of my colleagues on the board have already made comments similar to what I'm thinking and feeling, so I won't reiterate that. I do want to say, I also don't think any of us are, trying to deflect what the responsibility of what we're doing here tonight to the state legislature, because we are in this as a partnership. But I think it is important that all of you that are here in person as well as listening online recognize that that partnership has taken some turns in recent years that that have resulted in some of the needs and the situation that we're in right now. Just an example, this 2024 general session, the legislature cut the income tax rate to by $160 million. And if that money had been, and we could play the what if game, right, forever, but in this case, if that money had been distributed out to schools, public schools, Canyons District would have received about $7 million. And what we're asking for tonight is a $9 million increase. So I think that just kind of illustrates some of the comments and the points that have been made here. And that kind of that shifting of that partnership in supporting public schools. And with that said, I also appreciate all of you being here as part of this public process. It's so important. The 7 of us have been elected and appointed to make decisions that are in the best interest of not only our schools, but by having strong, healthy, vibrant, thriving schools and education, it's in the best interest of our community. It's in the best interest of all of us as residents and property owners and taxpayers in this community. I think several of you referred to the importance of this as in the larger community. And that to me is the beautiful thing about public education is it's a community investment. It has some immediate benefits to children that are in school and families that are currently in school. But the beauty of it is those benefits expand over time and over space and place. And that is one of the reasons why I am such a passionate supporter of public education. And I just want to go on record of saying that we cannot afford as a society and as a community to lessen the investment. And I'm not saying that more dollars, more is better, but we need to be very thoughtful and conscientious about the investments that we're making. And I believe that this board and our district leaders have done that in this case. And so I am supportive of this action tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Millerberg.
I am Mrs. Millerberg. I represent District 1 of Canyon School District. I've been serving on the board for a little more than 5 months. Prior to that, my husband had the seat, and along with what I would say the rest of the people that are sitting in front of you, I don't know many people that are more fiscally responsible than the parties that you see up here representing you. My husband was by profession a CPA, and he ran our home like a CPA. And I was right there with him. But I also am a public educator. And so I was seeing it from the perspective of a teacher as well as a citizen of once when we were all one district, Jordan, and then when we split as Canyons. It is imperative that we use the funds to attract the best teachers, qualified and responsible to work with our students. And I think you saw evidence of that. So I feel like there's a lot of ways that we have to divide our money, but that is one of the primary responsibilities. I represent Hillcrest. I brought up the same issue as you brought up about the track. Like, what the heck? You just built a brand new school and you're asking for more money. And it was justified by understanding that that development did not even include the track. And we actually went up and sat on the same bleachers that we sat on when we were in high school. They were the same ones. And my husband attended Hillcrest. And so there were a lot of developments that didn't happen, even though the price tag was high. So those are things that we're adding on because we feel like they're additions to that will make the facility more functional. I can't restate everything that's been said here, but I just want to express to all of you that I am one of you. I am a citizen of this neighborhood that feeds into Canyons. I have had 6 children raised in this area. They're all products of these schools. I now have grandchildren that are in these schools. I'm retired. I don't have an income. I understand that. Weigh out your tax bill. I see all that. With all that said, I just want to tell you that this body represents you, and we are being as fiscally responsible as we possibly can be with your tax dollars. We're representing you in behalf of the students that we're serving as responsibly as we possibly can. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I would just like to make a few comments right now. As we consider the proposal in front of us tonight, I recognize what this could mean for families who live or own businesses within Canyon's district boundaries. Certainly, it means residents will be asked to contribute more to local schools, even if their children have graduated and moved on into the next stages of their lives. We did not propose this measure without serious thought, study, and deliberation. We take seriously our obligation to be wise stewards of public funds. But the fact remains that inflationary costs have gone up 24%. I was going to say 20%, but Andrew said 24, so 24%. And we simply cannot continue to absorb those costs like we have in previous years. We hope that you can see that this measure is an investment in our future. We invest in our children by valuing our teachers who come to Canyons from all across the country as a result of our salary schedule, benefits, and clean and modern and safe schools. We invest in our children when we give teachers more planning time, which in turn will mean more impactful instruction for our students. We invest in our students by valuing the work of our education support professionals who do so much to help our schools run smoothly. After waiting patiently and watching other communities get new and renovated schools, the beat diggers and patriots deserve the attention they are receiving. Simply put, it is their time. This much I know for sure. Canyons District stands out academically, artistically, and athletically because we stand together when it matters. And as president of the board, I pledge to you that the funds received from this increase in certified tax rate will be spent wisely. We promise to use this meaningful investment in our schools to bring our students' dreams to life. Okay, now I will accept a motion if there's anyone who is wanting to do that tonight.
I move that we formally approve the 2024-2025 revenues and expenses presented at the June 18 budget hearing and set the total tax rate of 0.005677 for $9 million revenue increase above the certified tax rate. $5 million will be for operations and $4 million for capital expenses.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Is there any discussion to that motion? So I will tell the public here that we've had many conversations and discussions over, I mean, we had a list of something like 40 million upgrades to Jordan and the same to Eastmont. And we whittled that down to what we felt was the biggest need. So I do want you to know this was not taken lightly and we have had much discussion on this. So seeing no further comments or discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, so with nothing further on our agenda, I will just close this public hearing and adjourn. And thank you again to all the public for attending. Thank you.